Hey everybody, welcome back. I've got Marcus Philly with me today, and I'm going to guess that 90% of the people watching and listening to this know who Marcus is, but we had to have him come on because I think that there's a heck of a lot that Marcus can, well, teach all of us because he's been through a lot of different phases of training as well as coaching. And I wanted to bring him on just to sort of give his perspective on how his view of fitness and health and wellness has shifted over the years. So Marcus, man, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy our conversations.
Likewise, Jim, thanks for having me, and good morning. It is 6:30 a.m. as we record this, and I've already logged 2.5 hours of wake times. So I don't know about you, but
Oh man,
I'm fully caffeinated and ready to go.
I've been in a corporate finance book this morning, Marcus. So that's my life at this point, but I kind of enjoy it, as you know. So
Yeah.
So anyways, do us a favor. Can you just give us just a basic background on what you're doing today and approximately how you've gotten to this point?
Sure. Yeah. Wow. Brief. Um, I've been honing my skills on brevity and the and the history, the timeline of me in health and fitness. But yeah, essentially, I'm running Revival Strength, which has a few branches now. We do a lot of online coaching, one-to-one. We do group programs online, and we also have a training facility, an OPEX gym here in San Rafael that we operate for the local audience. Uh, and so that's really just sort of where I'm playing kind of my cards now. It's pretty broad. Um, and when I started out down the health and fitness journey, I think it really, I mean, I'll skip the part where I was just like a passionate athlete, young kid who just wanted to do everything, health and fitness related. But in college, I was a pre-med, came from a family, a long line of sort of physicians and healthcare practitioners in my family. And was sort of told growing up, hey, you'd be a great doctor. I was good at math and science. So I just sort of followed that path, and went to medical school in the early 2000, like 2008, 2009. So late 2000s. And I think I recognized that I just wasn't really passionate about the traditional allopathic medical system and the idea of disease masking with, or symptom management with medicine and drugs. And not to say that that's all medicine is. It's the predominant, feature of how medicine is being delivered. And I was like, okay, I want to do something more preventative in the way of healthcare, or just want to get back to like the part where people have control over what they can do, which is through movement, through nourishment, through lifestyle practices, the things I had learned over the years myself. And that just sort of pushed me down the health and fitness path a bit more. And then really it was just a process of like trial and error, like got into something, and everything that I did was really motivated by what's going to get me in front of the most people. So that's how I just learned the most in health and fitness. Was like, CrossFit was like the first place I went because everyone was doing CrossFit. And so I was like, okay, well, if I coach at a CrossFit gym, I'm going to get exposure to tons of people, and I'll be able to help. And then learn from that. Okay, what's the next iteration of that? And it's just evolved to now where I have, a pretty core set of beliefs and values around fitness and what I'm trying to, bring to the world and what I'm still trying to learn for myself.
When you think about your core set of beliefs, what would you say those boil down to?
It's really what can I do and what can others do? What approaches can we take that will support consistency in health and fitness and movement? And that's really it. It's what's going to get you doing it time and time again, over and over and over again. And that's because that's the challenge we're all up against, is we got to do this stuff forever. And the body and the humans, the goal, I think it's inherent in our DNA, is to just not change. Like we want to just maintain homeostasis. We don't want to go out and do anything that's hard. right? That's if we could just sit on the couch and be awesome, we would all do that. But that's so we gotta get ourselves into rhythms of doing things that, you know, otherwise we might not want to do. That's eating the right food versus eating the really sugary thing that tastes way better to our brains, or moving and, you know, versus not moving.
When you look at yourself as a coach, do you think that there are more or fewer challenges that you've had to overcome as compared to if you would have been a doctor?
Hmm. I think maybe had I gone down the medical route, I almost certainly would have ended up in a subspecialty that was relatively narrow focused. Um, I think that's probably how I would have navigated that, just to really protect myself against the challenges that I might face elsewhere. I don't know for certain, but like, you know, radiology started to look pretty, you know, appealing to me. My dad and my brother are radiologists, and you know, if I could just get into a room and read film and be pretty, you know, narrow with my special subspecialty, then I don't know if I would have run into a ton of obstacles. I think the obstacles in the medical system are when you're trying to, you know, see more of like a high volume patient. You're a general practitioner. You're dealing with a lot of red tape. You're doing a lot of insurance companies. You're struggling to you know, provide effective health care to people when you can only see them for 10 minutes at a time, and you know they're on 3 or 4 different drugs. And um, so that's a patient population that I think would have been really challenging. That's where I went to medical school in hopes of, you know, working with that patient population, and then seeing just sort of how difficult it was to really get into an effective role there.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I got to switch gears. Maybe I got to go into radiology or something, you know, that's a little bit more, you know, narrower focus. So I think with health and fitness, I think there are, you know, the challenges are not, they're different, right? It's people believe they need doctors. Not everyone believes they need a fitness coach, you know. So there's the challenge is sort of in marketing a little bit. It's in getting people to believe deeply that they need this for their well-being and for their future and for the quality of their life. Um, and even people that know that they need to work out, like, oh, I need to exercise, it's still changing their viewpoint of like, well, how much do you need, you know, do you need support and guidance in that? Can you just be a consumer of, you know, of exercise and go out and just buy a this or buy a that, or do you need to actually go and hire a professional to help you? And so that those are different challenges. Whereas like people are going to go to their doctor's appointments most of the time. You know, they're going to get their annual checkups. They're going to, if they feel sick, they're going to be like, I got to go to a doctor. They're not going to be like, oh, I feel sick, I don't feel well, I got to go find, you know, a health and fitness coach,
Yeah. Yeah.
when that's in reality what they need more than likely.
Do you think that it would be better or worse for the end consumer's health if fitness required an additional 4-year education, you know, before you could say, well, I'm a fitness coach or I'm a fitness professional?
Hmm. I mean, yes and no. I think if you did require that, there would be a whole new category of something in the exercise world that would get created below that. So somebody would be like,
Yeah.
I'm a doctor. Well, I don't want to go to medical school, so I'll just call myself a health and fitness professional. It's like, oh, now you got to go to you know, you got to go to basically health and fitness professional school. Oh, I'm going to call myself just an exercise trainer, you know. And then so there's, I think it could certainly elevate the, I think what it would do is it elevates the thought process that goes into the delivery of effective and, you know, thoughtful prescription, which I that's kind of vague, but when I went to medical school and when I've, you know, gone through university and done biology, you know, degree, um, it, I don't use that information day to day as a coach. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think all the physiology and the, there's some basic science stuff that's important, but what it does is it just sort of gives me a framework for thinking through problems and helps me to be more critical of like, is this working? Is this not working? Because that's how you look at scientific literature. That's how you know, go through the education academic process. And for those people that have skipped that, it's almost like they don't have a playbook to evaluate their efficacy and whether what they're doing for their clients, is our best practices. So that part, I think, and that wouldn't need to be 4 years, but that could be a 1 year or an 18-month trainers, or health and fitness professional course, professional school that could kind of sum all that up.
I've often wondered that if think about the time where there was snake oil salesmen. We're going way back, but it's like there was that, and then there were physicians, and then a lot of money came in from, actually, I think it was the likes of, was it the Rockefeller family? I think the Rockefeller family funded a boatload of medical research in hospitals, etc., which ultimately expanded the idea into professional as compared to small town or whatever. And it's like if the snake oil salesman was, I don't know, 150 years ago or whatever, the medical industry is not that long standing, so you kind of wonder if that pathway might be in a different light put together in health and fitness. But I agree with you. I mean, when you coach clients today and your coaches coach clients, how much are you focusing on behavior, habits, lifestyle as compared to, let's just call it, specific biology or specific programs, etc.? What do you find is typically kind of the important stuff for clients?
Well, that part's evolved a lot. If we're getting back to the original question, how have things evolved for me to now? I think when I first started coaching individuals, I got a lot more focused on the biology and the specific programs until I think I realized that there was only a small group of clients that were ready to just dive into that, and what made them ready to dive into that was they had the behaviors, they had the habits, they had the, right? Like, what's my overall view and philosophy around coaching? It's getting people to do things more consistently, so they can do this for a long time. And that's not written in some, biology book or some, high level strength program with, undulating periodization with bands and all kinds of stuff, right? It's like, does this person have the behavior set in place to be successful? So that's kind of, I think, where individual coaching has to start. It's a lot of that, and I like look at my current client list, because most of my clients that I work with now are 1, 2, 3 years plus with me. I don't take on new clients. And so I think, like, well, I don't do a ton of behavioral, habit forming, change stuff, lifestyle stuff with my clients now. We'll touch on it periodically, but I set those things up early on. And now, yeah, it's like we're focused on programs. We're focused on building just a better relationship with each other. The more I can learn about how their life is evolving, the more it helps me to understand what they need from a program design standpoint. And yeah, so it's definitely setting up those, behavioral changes and lifestyle patterns, and more of a, I don't know if it gets talked about enough, but it's the mindset around training and training adaptations. Because I think everyone hires a coach and they're like, great, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to get better forever,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, even in sales calls now, when I'm talking about like onboarding, new clients, I say, okay, there's a lot of progress we're going to see. And then probably within the first 3 to 6 months, we're going to hit this obstacle, and you're not going to see progress. So just kind of a prelude to like, this is not just an upward climb that's going to be linear forever. And if they can understand that and believe that, and at least see it coming and talk about it with you, and then create a mindset of, well, how do I get back on the horse if things kind of get a little off the rails. Like those are super important starting points, not, let's dive into your, right to left unilateral balance in your hips and the split squat.
So when you start talking about progress with a client who's been with you 1, 2, 3+ years, what does that conversation look like, and how often is a client, let's just call it, deeply understanding of what that means? So for example, it's like, you're going to have an amazing year this year. Your back squat's going to go up by 2 pounds. So it seems like we're sold this idea all the time. It's like, you can always get so much better. You can always go for the next level. When you do start to adapt, how do you find that your clients react to the idea that, hey, this isn't going to be as sexy of a year as your number one, if that makes sense? Like, how do you reconcile that with your clients? Like, how do you reconcile that it's going to get more boring?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this ties into a little bit where we're at as a business, and where I'm at as an influencer or influential fitness professional. I recognize that through my CrossFit career, was that, like, in order to push those next level boundaries that people saw as sexy in the progress department, it took everything out of me. Right. So the first few years of CrossFit, I was getting better. I was PRing, things were going up. I felt good. I was motivated. The last 3 years of CrossFit, I was like getting better. Things were going up, but like my motivation was slowly declining. And I was just like, man, in order to get those, in order to keep climbing the ranks, in order to keep seeing stuff improve, I'm having to give everything. And it's just crushing me. And to the point where it got so bad that, even after I recovered my body in 2016 from a competitive season, and I was physically geared up to do 2017, emotionally and mentally, I was just, can't do it. I'm like, because I could see how much it was going to take to continue to elevate. And that was really the driving force behind changing my thinking around, well, what does training have to look like? Now, keep in mind, that's because I was focused on a performance sport where I was trying to get better at, let's call it 20 different things simultaneously. And I was seeing, marginal increases in each one. But in order to get those marginal increases, I had to do, 30 hours of training, 25 hours of training a week. I was like, okay, how do I broaden this up? And by broadening things up and doing more different stuff, it kind of reinvigorated my training and my approach to fitness, which was like, wow, I can do all these things. I can maintain a pretty good level of, each subcategory. But now, like, I'm not just narrowly focused on a few performance metrics. I'm sort of broadly focused on, different aspects of training. And this is what really led to functional bodybuilding becoming something that really resonated with me, and then resonated with a ton of people. It was like, I think when I speak to clients or potential clients, prospective, customers, they're not like, they've tried to push the numbers, bench, squat, and deadlift high. And they're like, man, everything was good until it started to get hard to increase it. And then once it got hard to increase it, like raising your back squat by 5 pounds in a whole year, not only was it hard to increase that, but it came with pain. It came with injury. It came with, just mental and physical frustrations. And so they're like, I'm ready to get away from that. So sometimes it doesn't require that much convincing. It just requires showing somebody a different path. And that's what I try and show through my own, approach to fitness online, is like, I don't see anybody looking at me and saying like, man, you really lost a step, right? When in reality, I'm 100 pounds probably, or 75 pounds off my best back squat of all time. I'm 50 pounds off my best snatch of all time. All my numbers are down. but I'm doing a lot of things. I'm doing it well. I'm I'm looking good, as like an athlete. Like I look athletic. I've got a physique that people are like, oh, he looks good. I mean, I, I've lost 10 pounds since I was a CrossFit athlete, but I still, maintain. So it's like showcasing that you can do a lot of stuff. You can have fun with it. You can blend different training methods. And if there's this, if it's packaged in a way that people are like, oh, I can get on board with the idea of being excited to move and to do it differently rather than I'm on board to like add 20 pounds to my back squat, then, that's the challenge. It's still a challenge. It's not like I packaged it up and sold it perfectly, but I'm literally like, hey, we're selling look good, move well. We're selling, 5 to 10 years to 20 years of training without ever seeing a big PR, maybe 2 PRs, but that it's going to be fun. It's going to keep you going every single day. And at the end of the day, you actually, the person that's talking to me, they don't care about winning the CrossFit games, winning anything really. They just want to, they literally want to look good and move well. And then they want to go win in other areas of their life.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you about your own purpose of training and then your client's purpose of training. How much of this change, and it sounds like a lot of it, because obviously my perspective comes a lot from CrossFit as well, but how much of this is sort of finding the great middle zone of high performance in terms of I want high performance versus I don't want to get off the couch because that's hard. It's like, is it finding that perfect zone of purpose in, let's call it, moving well, moving consistently like you're talking about? Like, is that ultimately what you are seeking in yourself and with your clients? And obviously I know it's not one thing, but
I would say that I'm not I'm actually not really out there in the world of like trying to get people off the couch. Of course I want people to get off the couch, and I certainly would like to inspire people to, pick up a movement practice in their life, but I think I I speak more to the audience that's already moving, right? And that audience that's moving is kind of it's the high performers, the people that have been, chasing CrossFit. So I say high performers not because they're necessarily the best athletes in the world, but because they use a fitness method that is really based in performance. It's based in just metrics and are you doing it better than other people? And then people that are sort of doing the other thing, which is they're moving consistently at a gym, but they're following training methods that have yet to show them like that training can really give them what they want. They're just sort of lost. They're doing maybe traditional Globo gym routines that just haven't quite been effective. So it's or they're doing traditional Globo gym routines that feel good to them. They get a good pump, but they haven't really seen the efficacy, because they haven't figured out how to push themselves yet, right? And that's kind of that's like in my mind the challenge or the categorical flaw of some of those routines is that people go to the gym, they feel good, they do their curls, they do their leg press, they do whatever, right? And they get a pump, and it's like you're moving. They feel good, but then they look in the mirror and they're like, man, I'm not really changing, and I don't feel like I'm that functional. And it's often because like they haven't had a chance to experience what intensity or moving, with purpose or having something hard feels like. So I'm kind of really in the middle of that group, and it's like there's value to both sides of that equation, and I've fortunately been able to experience it deeply, as an athlete that has done both. I've done the bodybuilding gym routines that had tremendous value to me. They made me feel amazing. I loved going to the gym. It was like my favorite part of the day, but also left a little room on the table because I was like, man, I haven't quite pushed myself to see what I'm capable of performing or doing. I've done the CrossFit thing to the max, felt the value of that, and then felt the drawbacks. And, you get to the end of CrossFit competitive life and you're like, man, I just kind of want to go back and get a pump and feel good. Right. So it's like, where do we find the middle ground in there. And then it's just telling that story over and over and over again in as many different ways as possible to let people hear it, and to sort of help each side of that, of that two-sided argument, see that the other side is not wrong. They got something that you don't have that's good, and they got some things that you don't have that you don't want to have. Trust me.
Wait, how would you say your perspective has shifted since getting married and having kids? Like if you hadn't gotten married and had kids, do you think you'd still want to, do CrossFit at a high level, or challenge yourself more? Like, how have you matured as you've gone through those stages?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to just acknowledge that the life context has really shifted sort of what matters, to me from a movement and fitness perspective. I, I, I I don't know. I guess a good way to think about it is that we all have a finite, capacity to handle stress. We got our stress bucket, and when your stress bucket's pretty empty, and you're looking for, and if you're driven and motivated like I was to sort of see what, how you can challenge yourself in life, then physical stress was my outlet. I was like, I want to just push myself physically. Once I started to push myself physically, and keep in mind, like, I didn't have kids, didn't have rent to pay, didn't have, like, I hadn't even started my business, my first CrossFit gym yet. I was just like a kid that, didn't have debt, and I was good to go. Right. So what was I going to fill that with? Well, I was going to fill it with the thing that I love to do, which was just exercise. And I found out I could do competitive exercise. Okay, great. Like, I was just going to fill it up. And so of course I was wanting to challenge myself and push myself and grow. And that I had not limitless capacity to do it, but I had a huge amount. And then as the years went on, so that was like 2010. And then in 2012, I opened up my first business. So that started to fill a little bit of the stress bucket. And then by 2014 or 15, I was in a pretty serious relationship, living with my partner, paying rent. Okay, so now my expenses are going up, and I'm focused a little bit more on, like, how do I make this work? And then 2016, I think we bought a house, a condo, and then 2017, I started another new business without business partners. It was all on me, and then in 2017 we also had our first child, and then we had a second child, and then we bought a house. And so as the other stressors started to climb, I had less and less room for the physical stress of competing, which also brought along mental and emotional stress too. And so I started to look for other ways to channel that and to decrease that physical stress or the exercise training output. And so certainly, yeah, it's made a huge impact on sort of where I'm pushing myself to grow and to learn. I probably my fault is that I probably still push myself too hard in other areas, not physical, like areas that are equally as, taxing on my whole system. But because the physical stuff required such a high level of output, I just don't have that to give anymore. And then that's been a blessing to me, because in the 4 years since I've competed in CrossFit and fitness, moving away from that, I just am able to connect and resonate so much more with the bulk of the audience out there. I still think it's great to compete in fitness. If I didn't have all of this on my plate, I probably would still be trying to do some competitions. And I think that if you're in that place in your life, and you're honest about it, and you're not just trying to, like, pretend like you can do it while you have 10 other things on your plate, then it's like, that's terrific. And let's coach you up to have the best possible outcome in that, and learn as much as you can about yourself along the way. Cause that's what I did for 6-7 years. When it was, I wouldn't change anything about it. But the reality is more and more people don't have that capacity. They don't have the space in their life to do that. They have a job, they have a family, they have responsibilities, and they have other things that interest them so much and they're putting time towards that they, like me, would rather do pretty good in everything and then be able to go and crush the rest of the stuff that they're passionate about, than try and do really, really good, amazingly well in a few, couplets of burpees and thrusters, and then sacrifice, being a present parent or, a professional that can grow in their field.
It's interesting that you said I can be pretty good in those things, because the outside perspective looking in would be absolutely wowed at the ability that you have
Yeah.
in and out of the gym, right? It's, so perspective shifts in such a big way. I've noticed that a lot. I was never remotely as good of an athlete as you are, but I did a set of back squats a couple of days ago at 80 pounds below, where maybe it should be. And I was like, I feel better than I used to feel. Like, why am I upset about this number going down? Because I'm still back squatting like perfectly well. I can go run a marathon if I need to run a marathon. But so much of it just gets kind of going in our heads with maybe what we think we're capable of. And then also the perspective of, well, there's this thing called high level fitness. Like, do we need to be the best at this high level
I
fitness
know,
thing?
right? Well, isn't it interesting that like CrossFit was always touting this idea of like, you're not going to be the best, you're just going to be good at everything, you're going to be a generalist, right? So the generalist mentality I love, but to pursue the generalist mentality, it meant you have to go and give everything you've got to the max on each thing. So there was this disconnect over time between, it's like, this person's coming in to be generally good at everything. Well, what does generally good look like? Well, do they have to go balls to the wall on rowing and burpees and thrusters and kettlebell swings in order to be pretty good at everything? No, like, there needs to be this understanding of like RPE scales. Like, you can move at 7 out of 10 in all the stuff and get good at everything. You don't need to go 10 out of 10 on every AMRAP and every 3-2-1 go for time workout and every, build up to a heavy back squat. Like, you don't need to. So yeah, it's like, but that's the culture, and that's the thing that's getting, and it's not just CrossFit, it's plenty of, different fitness methods that are out there that are pushing that. And so if we want to really honor the idea of like, you want to be good at a lot of stuff, pretty good at a lot of stuff, and pretty good ends up looking like phenomenal to the average person, then you don't need to go max effort all the time. You truly do not. And if you actually pull back, people will end up feeling like, whoa, I'm actually making more progress than I ever thought before. Like, this has been such a difficult but also rewarding message to try and speak over and over and over again through social media channels, like, 3 years in a row of just like telling people like, hey, pull back a little bit, less is more. This is going to be great if you just don't kill yourself.
Yeah. How much of fitness to you, Marcus, is play? Like, how much do you enjoy just going in? And I know you always have trained with purpose and you still train with purpose, but like, do you walk in there with, either an external or an internal smile on your face, just being like, I'm just going to go enjoy this session and get out of it something great? Like, is it a playful time in your mind, or is it very focused?
I would say that this is probably an area that I still need to grow and evolve in. It used to be very focused and purposeful with regards to training outcomes and getting ready for competition. I would say now it's very purposeful and focused because I limit my time. I mean, I just have such limited time. So that's a lifestyle, piece that I am going to continue to work on for years to come. Is like create enough space in my day to go out and have fun and play with fitness rather than feel like I'm on the clock. I got to get it done before I move on to the next thing. I think I was moving in that direction, and then COVID times hit, and basically went from, working a job to now taking care of my kids almost full time and working a job. And, just like just the added piece of the childcare has just really changed things. But whenever I do have that opportunity to sort of like, and it's funny, it's like 4 days a week I do resistance training, or like, I work out with weights and stuff. And I've got like, about a 60-minute workout that's written, and, I have a coach that writes that stuff up for me. I go out and I'm like super focused. Okay, I got to get it done. This is during nap time. I'm going to knock it out. And then as soon as it's over and I look at the monitors and the kids are still sleeping, I'm like, oh, I'm going to play a little bit. And I maybe like spend like 15 to 20 minutes just like flipping a kettlebell on the grass or doing something. And that's often like the most enjoyable time of the session for me. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I certainly want people to, aspire to have space for in their day and their training, approach their training that way. But there certainly has to be, in my opinion, a balance of purpose and play. And if there's too much play, there's very few people that are so elevated in their understanding of their bodies and fitness and energy balance where they can just play and get what they want out of their fitness. Most people need to have a lot of structure and purpose. I think of James as a somebody who's really elevated enough to a point in his, fitness where he's like, he understands it so well that he can just play most days and he gets what he needs out of it for his body. But, most people are not there. It's like, if you say, hey, go play with a kettlebell, like, after 3 months, like, man, I kind of put on a little weight. Like I'm not really feeling great in my body.
I can imagine the person who walks into the park, with a kettlebell, and it just says "play with the kettlebell," and they're like, I just no idea what that even means.
Right.
Okay, so take me back and walk me through as let's call it the 15, 16-year-old big time soccer player, getting ready for university, big plans, big goals. Walk me through the change of that kid versus today, and do me a favor and put it through the context of the coach. So how has your coaching lens or your understanding of working with other people changed as you step through those big times in your life?
I would say that up until college, and even just like a couple years after college, everything that I was doing was very focused on a narrow aspect of health and fitness or fitness, right? It was like in high school, it was like, how do I get my chest bigger? And it was just like read everything I could on how to get my chest bigger and do a million different bench press, dumbbell exercise, push-ups, whatever, or it was, how do I gain weight? Okay, I'm going to super dive into learning about like a muscle building diet, and then I'll read off of T Nation and, try and go and do and whatever. It was like, there was no like simultaneous looks at different aspects of fitness and how they piece together. Like I never thought like, oh, I think I remember reading an article by Poliquin that was like, increase your arm size with this secret. And it was like, go do back squats. Right? It was like, just get a big neuroendocrine response and then your arms are going to grow. And I was like, it was like mind boggling to think that like something unrelated to bicep curls could impact my bicep size. And so that kind of like summarizes how things in the early days were. It was, I do this and that's how I get better. I do that and I get better, part A does not influence part C, and part Z doesn't influence part, Y. they're just isolated parts of the health and fitness, journey. And then I would say it was like right after college, I think I had enough, I hit enough obstacles, or I hit so many obstacles in college and right after college that I had to kind of question that approach. It's like, I can't just get, like super, like, I think college was a time I really experimented a lot with dieting and with body composition change, and, being super focused on just the food and caloric restriction and, getting abs, and that, like, it led to a whole host of injuries, disordered eating kind of behaviors, just depression. Like, I was like, whoa, like this is really throwing me all off, because I've gotten so focused on a couple variables here. So I sort of just back up, and then it was like, okay, I want to take this, how do I find the plan, or the then it became about finding like the plan that would work to help piece it all together. And I was like, oh, there's just a plan out there. And it was CrossFit, paleo, and, some combination. I was like, okay, I've got it. Now, if I can just do this, it's working for me. I just tell everybody the same thing. Great. So it was my first trip down the road of, there are different aspects to achieving optimal health and fitness that involve a balance between movement and exercise approach and nutritional approach. If I put them together in the right way, then we're going to be good. But there's still just one way that's going to work for everybody. That was sort of the fault in thinking at that point. And then I would say that as things kept kind of progressing through the early years of CrossFit, and seeing, hundreds of people come in and out of the affiliate, trying to feed them one prescription, realized like, oh, this really only works for about 20% of the people or less. The other 85 have churned out over time, and in the 15% that are still here are like only having marginal success. It's like, okay, maybe there's more. So then and this is all happening at the same time as I'm self-experimenting and seeing that some things work for me, some things work better, at different times of year. Some things work for me and some things don't work at other times of year. And then that just sort of accelerated once I got out of the framework of thinking of competitive fitness, and having to like really, evaluate, because I was recognizing that there was more to the health and fitness puzzle than just competitive fitness, but I was so brainwashed in there. It was just like everything was, is this making me squat more and snatch more and do a faster 2K row? And that was always getting trickled out to all the people I worked with to some degree. So then it just got more that learning process just accelerated after competitive fitness. And now it's realizing, okay, there's all of these different principles that are out there. Each person's going to have a different sort of recipe of including those pieces to get them on the path to consistency, which is the path to success for them. And it's about basically, providing enough different looks at all the different approaches to people so that they can decide, oh, this works. Oh, I want to try that. And if they're ready to hire a coach and to work with us to help us guide them there, they'll get there faster. But there's still there's still room for people to find their own path out there, so long as there's enough different approaches and methods put in front of them with good explanation involved. And the one thing I'll say that I'll add to this is, because that brings us up to where I'm at currently, is that in order to know what I know now, I couldn't have skipped any of those steps. Like diving into every little thing so specifically and really getting to know the details of aspects of it. I think while it doesn't help people create a general approach to their fitness that will build consistency over time. As a coach, it really informs me a lot to speak to clients with confidence and clarity and the ability to you know, explain things to a variety of different people, because I've experienced each aspect of these things so deeply myself as a person, as an athlete, as a student of fitness, prior to telling somebody, oh yeah, just drink more water.
Yeah, there's so many layers to that statement. Well said, man. I really appreciate you coming on today. I would love to keep doing this. We'll definitely have to do it live whenever Carl and I are able to get out to you with some recording gear. But
Yep.
appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you, Functional Bodybuilding Revival? Where can they get you?
Yeah, go to revival-strength.com and get on our sign up for our newsletter. And then Marcus Philly, at Marcus Philly on social media, at Revival Strength on social media. Those are some good places to check it out.
Perfect, man. Thanks so much for coming on, Marcus. I appreciate the early morning session. And I also appreciate the birds in the background because they calmed me throughout the entire conversation.
Yeah. And yeah, at some point the sun comes up. You can see it. Like if I lean this way, I'm just getting blasted by the sun, but it's nice. I have to shift my body as we go through the morning interviews.
You did it elegantly. I noticed you were kind of trying to find the spot here and there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marcus. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, for sure.